So, I wanted to talk about how abusers change our minds and then how we can change it back. And I do want to preface this by saying that abusers, they hijack normal relationship pathways. They take advantage of things that are normal to occur. So we want to hold that in the back of our minds as I'm discussing this, because it doesn't mean that you should change this specific pathway that they use. All right. So when you're trying to change somebody's mind, you can do it very quickly or you can do it very slowly. The faster you do it, the more force you have to apply. The slower you do it, the less force you have to apply, but you have to do it over a longer period of time. So, for example, if you are bringing someone into the military and you've got to get this person on board with everything they need to believe and think about the military in order to enact their duties to be safe on their deployment. So what they will do is they do a short term, I believe it's something like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, where you're in a boot camp and they are interrupting your sleep and you are getting yelled at and they are using high force, high control tactics to break you down quickly so that they can replace your inner thoughts, your responses, so they can program you in the way that they want to. And so that is a very obvious use of force. When you want to change someone's mind without engaging that level of force, what you need is a lot of exposure and you need them to give you the benefit of the doubt and to take you seriously. And as I said, this is not a bad thing in a normal relationship with healthy people. This is how we influence each other. And when you're with the right person, that influence goes in a positive way, not a negative way. But that is what abusers do. They take the things that are normal and healthy and they use that to their own advantage. Because in a healthy relationship, that works both ways. It's mutual. It's not one person influencing the other. And it's also why we want to be really careful about what media we take in, what YouTubers or Instagram or social media people we follow, because as you expose yourself to them and their ideas, and as you develop positive feeling towards them, you're more likely to take what they say and give them the benefit of the doubt. You're more likely to let yourself be influenced by them, which again, depending on the person, may or may not be a bad thing. But it is a pathway that can go very wrong very quickly if you are giving the wrong person the benefit of the doubt. Now, abusers tend to be more in a middle space where they're using force and also that leverage they get by being in the relationship dynamic with you, by you giving them the benefit of the doubt, by you believing that they care about you, that they love you, that you're friends, that there's loyalty there. And so they start off with the love bombing often, or they start off seeming like a safe person. They start off seeming like a good person. And so you open yourself up to this person and you give them the benefit of the doubt, and then they have more access. And as they get more access, they start to exert more force. They start to exert more entitlement to power over you and to tell you what to do. And it happens in such a way that it is incremental. So by the time you're fully blown into the abuse dynamic and you don't real until one day maybe you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, there's some maybe bright line that's been crossed. Maybe they hit you. Or you realize you don't have control over your own money, or that you are not allowed to make choices about things that are your things to make choices over. This is, they're going to work off your relationship. They're going to stand on the relationship like, well, I'm your mother, I'm your father, I'm your husband, I'm your wife, I'm your best friend. Then they're going to say, essentially, you owe me, but a version of, I've done all of these things for you. The you owe me piece is often what they use to make themselves feel justified for feeling entitled. Then they're going to tell you how you're wrong, and then they're going to tell you what you should do. And if you don't do that, they may punish you, abuse you, hurt you, harm you. And so this process can increase in intensity, increase in the harm, increase in the emotional manipulation as you get further into the relationship dynamic, as they feel more confident to exert power over you in a way that you can't stop them. The other thing that they'll do is they will stand on your own moral framework. And it's something that I'm coming from the legal field. So I'm a paralegal. And so I'm familiar with, how you cross examine a hostile witness. So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are mad at you and hostile toward you, but it means it's not your own witness, it's a witness for the other side. When you are cross examining a hostile witness, you have to build a foundation on which the witness will agree to then start to move the needle, to maybe get them to testify to something that they don't want to testify to, or to agree to something that they don't want to agree to. So they start with the facts that you kind of look like you're being an idiot or you're not being in good faith if you don't say yes to the facts. Um, and so abusers will also, they're honestly, they do remind me of lawyers so much. Anyway, so they will use the facts, of course, as they've interpreted them, with their very leading questions, just like you see with an attorney. They'll use the facts to make you agree to the facts and also to get you accustomed to saying yes to them, and also to make you feel like you have to answer their questions, that they're in a position where they are entitled to get your answers, which they're not. Okay. This is not a judge. You are not on a court stand. You are not required to do any of this. In a healthy relationship, of course, we want to have conversations, but that's not what they're doing. They're pretending it's this so they can get more power and control over you. Anyway, so they use the facts as they've interpreted them, and then they use their interpretation off of those facts to try to move you toward believing that you're wrong, or also, they will use like your own moral framework, the things that you believe, to kind of trap you in that belief. Well, if you believe this, then you would X, Y, Z, right? And, it could be political beliefs. Maybe you believe in supporting marginalized and oppressed people. And then they come to you and they say, I'm a marginalized, oppressed person, and you're oppressing me in this relationship. They've taken something that is a core value and weaponized it against you in a domain that is not related and is inappropriate. But they're arguing not in good faith. They aren't recognizing your autonomy, authority, and power over yourself. And they believe that they are entitled to make you be different. So when they have this level of access to you, as they get you to concede more and more, as you make yourself smaller and smaller to avoid the blow-ups, your distress tolerance basically goes down, because every time they get aggressive, it feels like the end of the world. Or it feels like you're in danger, and you may genuinely be in danger. So they start taking more and more of your resources, of your mental space, of your beliefs. They end up taking over kind of like your entire life. So we get to a point where we go, oh no, what happened? And then victims of abuse are they're trying to pull out the threads that have been woven into their belief structure. Often threads about yourself and who you are, what you deserve, how you deserve to be treated. And a lot of victims are trying to find objective truth. They want to know what's objectively true, and am I the abuser? Is this other person? There are all sorts of things they're trying to figure out. And that's usually why I come in orienting towards safety first, because you don't have to know who the abuser is to make decisions that are in everybody's best interest. So, for example, if you think, oh, I'm possibly abusive, but maybe it's them because they did X, Y, Z. You don't have to know. You right now you can decide things are not safe. This is not how we want to live anymore. This is not the person that I want to be. This isn't the person I thought they were when we got together. This is not working out. It's not safe. We need to separate, right? So, however that separation occurs, you can then get to a point where you can think your own thoughts. you can start to analyze things for yourself instead of being told what to think, told what to believe, without someone exerting like this unhealthy level of control over you because they think they're right or whatever their justification is. If you stay in the relationship dynamic as a victim and you're trying to figure these things out without separating first, you're going to know you're making progress when your inner thoughts, your inner mind starts to push back against the abuser. Even if you don't say anything, even if you end up going along with it, the fact that your mind is now going, wait a minute, didn't you say this other thing? Or wait, this doesn't seem right. When you really start to question, and then your mind's like, wait, that's wrong. Oh, I know that's wrong. They said this other time, or they did this thing this other time. So when that interior voice starts to get stronger, you know you're starting to pull your own thoughts away from what the abuser has planted within you. And kind of like a mirror reflection, the more force you exert, the shorter a time period it takes to kind of deprogram yourself from the abuser. So the more force you exert on your own behalf, like getting out, taking drastic actions, usually that time period is going to be a lot shorter. If you stay in the dynamic and you don't exert a lot of force to get yourself free, and I'm not saying force is bad, by the way, like you're allowed to exert force on your own behalf, then it takes longer to kind of deprogram yourself. And you'll see victims who are in the relationship, they start, well, they often start with the relationship resources, but once they get to the point where they recognize, oh, there's maybe abuse here, and they start consuming the abuse resources, they start following people, it takes time for them to shift their mindset because all of this new information that they are taking in is actively being counteracted by what the abuser is doing and saying. Whereas when you exert more power in the situation to remove yourself, to protect yourself, to get boundaries, whatever it is, then you're no longer having to compete with that from the abuser. And so that process can be faster. But just as with anything, like for example, if we're wanting to be healthier and maybe move towards fitness or, eating healthfully or something like that, the process may be a fast process. It might be a slower process, but the more steps you take in the direction of that goal, the more empowered you are toward that goal. And the same thing is true for getting free of an abuser, getting back your own mind. Anyway, I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.